This is Stay Paid, the marketing podcast that gives listeners a competitive edge to stay motivated, find inspiration, and discover proven real-world tactics from some of the best marketers across the nation.
Welcome to Stay Paid. My name is Joshua Stike.
And I'm Luke Acree.
And today, we're going to be having a difficult conversation.
Yeah, get
about
your butt in
difficult
gear,
conversations. This is something you talked about the other day on the Insurance Syndicate. If you guys aren't following that,
yep, got a lot of great feedback. Group, even my dad texted me.
Really?
And said, hey, I listened to, because I also went
live. Well, you also go live on Instagram, so at Luke Acree, so you can make sure you got those live notifications turned on to get these. But.
Yeah, join every Monday at 10 Eastern Standard Time.
Nice.
I'm going live and giving a Monday mindset. It's Monday mindset, marketing, and money, right? You got to get your mindset right, get your marketing right to get your money right.
Yeah.
But, we talked about radical candor, having direct conversations, and it really came out of, I forget who said it. Okay, I wish I could give them credit, but somebody said everything you want is on the other side of a difficult conversation.
Yeah.
I just want that to sink in for people right now. Like everything you want in life is on the other side of a difficult conversation. And if you think about that, right, I framed it up this way, and I have found this to be true. Like I put the title of my Insurance Syndicate, it's like this one trait, if you master this trait, you will exponentially grow your business. And it's one of the keys to success in life and in business. And it's the skill set of having direct, radical candor conversations with people.
Yeah.
Matthew Hussey, who's known as a relationship expert, right? So he counsels people and teaches people from a relationship side, like husband and wife, boyfriend and girlfriend, stuff like that. And he said, your happiness is directly correlated to the number of hard conversations that you're willing to have. Yes. And this is a relationship expert.
Is it because you're getting off your chest and you're not living with that and you're not having that internal whatever, or is it because of the results that you get from having the difficult conversations? Like, I kind of wonder which one it is.
I mean, I can't say I know truly. I know for me, I can speak personally. It's like, one is it doesn't bottle up inside you like you're talking about. Mm-hmm. You're not living a fake world. Mm-hmm. Like I had a conversation with the manager the other day because I was watching somebody in their down the line, one of their team leads, have a conversation with somebody, and I realized that person was not saying the frustration that they truly had.
Okay.
And it's like, you're not...
See it all the time.
It's not real. It's not real. So I said, hey, were you frustrated when that person was acting that way?
Yeah.
Did that frustrate you? Because you could see it all over their face that they're frustrated. You could say, why didn't you say it? Why weren't you honest?
Yeah.
Why weren't you honest? Now, the reason why I say that, though, is because not only do you get that, right, but... don't you love the people in your life that you know you're getting the real person? And not only that, you know what they want and you know what they need. And if you think of Matthew Hussey from a relationship standpoint, like one of the killers of relationships is you get misalignment on expectations and people don't share what they need. And then it bottles up. And then every time it's like, if my wife Megan never shares with me that she needs me to actually help her around the house, it just bottles up and bottles up and bottles up. And because she didn't want to have that radical candor conversation, I'm not calling Megan out, I'm calling myself out here. But because she didn't, want to have that radical candor conversation, all of a sudden it blows up.
It is so true. And it is so important from a communication standpoint. Like when you have good communication, you understand the value of good communication. I think Kim Scott even talks about, you mentioned radical candor, that there is a difference between, being with radical candor, and I'm not sure, she has like a grid where she's got like ruinous empathy and radical candor, different sort of, there's like a quadrant. You can look it up online to see it and make sure to read that book. It's a great book. But there's this ability to have empathy behind and good intentions along with the difficult conversation. I think we're going to talk about some of this here because you've got 6 bullet points laid out here, basically of kind of how to have these difficult conversations. The first bullet point, I'll kick us off here, is to let the person know that this is going to be a difficult conversation and kind of state your goal.
Yeah, this is specifically when you are going to address somebody. I'll rewind and back up just a little bit on one thing I want to state because I don't want to miss the point, is that the first hard conversation you have to have is with the man in the mirror.
Yeah.
Like the first radical conversation you have to have is with you. Like, you know what you're not doing. Stop telling yourself the BS narrative that you're telling yourself, the excuse that you're giving yourself, If you want to have radical, direct conversations, not only with others, which is the key to success and happiness, you first have to have it with yourself. How do you do
true.
that?
Yeah.
You have to also be vulnerable enough to let others in to hold you accountable to that conversation. So the example I gave on the insurance syndicate with Steve, the guy, that's partners in crime here with us, is he had heart surgery and he's supposed to be on the treadmill every day. He's been slacking a little bit, right? So he reached out to me and said, hey, will you hold me accountable to getting on the treadmill every day? This is why Steve is going to be successful and is successful in his life, because he has the radical conversation with himself in the mirror going, you're failing at what you need to do. You're not able to hold yourself accountable. Reach out to get somebody else to hold you accountable. That will be real and be direct with you. And that's just such a key point, that you can't succeed in radical conversations with others unless you're doing it with yourself.
So has he gotten back on the treadmill?
He said he did. Now, I got to see the video proof.
Yeah, I want pictures.
That's the type of accountability partner I am. Hey, snap me a photo. If you're going to text me right now, you better not be in bed. Snap me a photo.
That was during 75 Hard. It's like, I want to make sure I got a picture of this. It's dark. I'm outside working out.
The amount of shirtless pictures I have on my phone now from 75 Hard, because you have to take
that was the worst part about 75 Hard. You pull up your phone, it's like, oh, excuse me, ignore those.
Ignore all the shirtless pics of me trying to take progress pics. But, okay, so getting back to talking with others in this first point of letting them know it's a hard conversation. And I'll give a caveat here. These 6 are not all encapsulating. I'm just trying to think through things that I have learned, been told, things that have worked for me. One of the things that has worked for me very well is not sugarcoating, not dancing around the point, and not avoiding your intention of the conversation. And it helps me to state in the very beginning, hey, Josh, want to talk to you. Hey, man, this is going to be maybe a rougher conversation or more difficult conversation. But the key here is you're not only prepping them, right? But then you also are sharing with them that what your goal is from the convo, if that makes sense. You got to state your intention of the conversation.
This is going to be hard to hear, but here's why it's happening.
Bingo. Because
it also alleviates, just so you guys know, it takes a lot of pressure off of you if you start with that, because you're not having to figure out, okay, how do I navigate into this feedback? You're coming right out and saying, hey, this is going to be a tough conversation.
Bingo.
Right.
If you don't state your intention and you don't state the goal, hey, this is going to be rough. You don't have to say it exactly that way, of course, but hey, this is going to be a tougher conversation, or hey, I want to address some things that I'm not happy with. But my goal in addressing these things is because I value our friendship so much. I value our relationship so much. I value what we're doing together so much. Whatever that is, I value it so much that it is worth it to me to have this conversation with you so I can share with you what's going on. And it eliminates, here's what it eliminates. Conversations get emotional. We're emotional human beings. You will say things that are misinterpreted.
Your guard wants to go up immediately. You want to get defensive.
You're lowering people's guard because now they know what to expect and they know the reason why you're having the conversation. And so now you have an intent in mind and you have a goal that you're both pursuing. And then also ask them, I don't know if this is a separate bullet point that I wrote down or not, but it's the second bullet point. You want to ask permission. To have that conversation.
I like this one.
Yeah, because I fail at this one all the time. Where it's like, hey, I want to have a conversation with you, and I just come out and just have it.
They might be in the middle of something. You might have called them, interrupted them in the middle of a project or a task that they're trying to get done. And if they have the opportunity to say, hey, I want to hear it, but can we do it in 30 minutes?
And your goal is to ask them, hey, can we have this conversation now, or would you like to have it later? I'm okay with either. I just want to make sure you're in the right mindset or whatever to have it. And you'll find that people might say, hey, can we have it in an hour? I'm actually trying to finish up this project. Or I'm trying to finish up XYZ. So asking for permission is key.
Yeah. I like the next one. Share your part in the situation and take responsibility. So.
Vulnerability creates vulnerability. Right? So the way to build trust with people is to give trust, right? And to give trust, you have to own your responsibility. There's two sides to every coin. You play a part. Even though what they're doing is affecting you, you want to make sure that you are presenting what your part in this conversation is and what you own. And oftentimes, because it takes two, if you lead in sincerity of, hey, this is what I've recognized that I'm doing. And I'm not sure how it's making you feel. I'm not sure what's going on and the impact of it, but I do take ownership of I could do a better job here. And that just lowers and levels the playing field.
I find I was having kind of a, not a difficult, but I was giving direct feedback yesterday to one of my team members, and most of the time I find that when I'm giving that feedback, I'm like, I have to take responsibility. Like, this is me too.
Yeah.
Like, just so you know, I'm telling you this, but this is also me. So we're in this together, but we both need to work on this.
I will clarify there. You're not stating about you to soften the message.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
So a lot of people will state some thing that they believe they might be doing to soften the message for the other person. That is not what it's about.
Yeah.
It is about transparency of communication.
Yeah.
And that's a
But if
key
it's true,
point.
if it's true,
it will soften it, because it will create vulnerability.
Yeah.
But you want to just be careful that you don't try to lead in to manipulate the conversation by going, hey, man, and I know I can be confusing too sometimes. It's like, no, be specific. And I have that as one of the points later on.
You give them an out, kind of, if you're like, oh, they do it too. So,
yeah.
All right, we'll talk about taking, you take ownership of your responsibility, take ownership of your feelings was your next one.
Yeah, so Simon Sinek has a great acronym called F.B.I, which is Feelings, Behavior, Impact. And he talks about when you're addressing like hard conversations, and I find this to be true, you have to share with people how it is impacting you. Like, what are your feelings around it that is happening? What are the behaviors that the other person is doing that is making you feel that way, and what is the impact it's ultimately going to have on your relationship? Mm-hmm. So I made this mistake with Megan in our relationship, and it's probably still do to this day, and I'm trying to get better at it. I always approach arguments, conversations, discussions from there's this truth that's outside of both of us, this morality that we must, adhere to. And what it does is it's so, I don't know what the proper term for it is, but it's so terrible because it basically goes, I'm addressing like, hey, we got to be better because of this outside morality, not going, hey, this is how you're making me feel, Megan. Like, this is how it's impacting me. That's real. I'm not coming as the governance or the governor of morality of like, this is how we need to be and this is how you should be, and you're failing at being the good person that you're supposed to be. It's coming from a place of vulnerability and going, hey, this is how I personally feel. And that's way more impactful. So if I come to you and tell you something that's going wrong or something I think you're doing wrong, if I explain it from a thing of like, hey man, this is how businesses are supposed to run, all of a sudden it's an outside morality, an outside whatever, instead of going, hey Josh, what you're doing is making me feel this. This is how it's affecting me. And these are the behaviors that you're doing that are doing that. And this is the impact it's going to have. It's going to have these business impacts. It's going to have these relationship impacts. It's going to have this stuff that affects and the relationship's too important to me to not address it. So does that make sense what I'm saying? It's like you would receive it way better because you would go, hey, I care about Luke. So if it is affecting Luke, versus don't try to teach me how to be a better business person.
Yeah. And I think it rolls into your next point, talking about being clear and specific.
Yes.
Because you really have to dial it down to, okay, how is this making me feel? What is actually the specific behavior that's causing that? And then here's the greater impact that it's having on the business.
Yeah. So I try to encourage people, if there was a specific thing that happened that caused an issue, state that specific thing so people can get clarity.
Yeah. And don't wait.
Don't
give the
that's
feedback.
Such a great point.
Don't say this thing that you did 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, that's so good.
Because that's unfair. Number one, it kind of makes it seem like, oh, you've just been bottling this up and living on it. The other thing, it's like, if I'm getting feedback, like, why didn't you tell me when it happened? Yeah. Like, you just let 2 weeks go by.
It's so good.
Where I could have kept doing the same thing without addressing it and giving me this feedback sooner.
Yeah, and that ruins the trust. I put down, if in business, unfortunately, when you talk specifics, there's always nuance, and so it's like if we were both looking at an elephant right now, you might be looking at the tail and I might be looking at the trunk, and I might be going, it's long and it's massive, and you're like, no, it's small and has these, but we're looking at the same elephant, we're just looking at from different directions, right? Yeah. Different perspectives. So when you get into specifics on an issue, you have a chance, you got to understand that like there's nuance to it. So in business specifically, I tell people it's really good to try to see patterns, because patterns of behavior are a lot easier for people to see why it's affecting you versus just one specific instance. So patterns
also tend to eliminate excuses, because one specific instance, this was going on that day, that's
Bingo.
why that happened. But if it's a repeated pattern, you can't. It's whack-a-mole with the excuses.
Exactly. So if you address patterns in people like, hey, you have a pattern of showing up late. Hey, you have a pattern of not being engaged in the meetings. Just not being engaged one time, whatever. So it's kind of your understanding the situation. And the situation, like I heard about a situation in our company where one employee screamed at the other employee on a call. That you have to address the specifics. That's not about a pattern. That's like the specific. Like, hey, screaming at me on that call yesterday or 5 minutes ago, whatever. But the pattern of like lates or like not engaging or not responding fast enough. That behavior of you delaying in your response makes me feel this way. It makes me feel that you don't care.
Yeah.
And that impact makes me not want to be part of this team. It makes me not want to give my all, whatever, right, that it is. You're just walking through this F.B.I. type idea with being clear and specific.
Yeah. Last point here is to listen and be open to hear what the other person's point of view is.
So there's two sides to every coin. The best way to reach people is to try to seek to understand the shoes that they walk in, right? Put on their shoes. So I just had a conversation where someone was on the phone with me yesterday. It makes me sound like our organization is in chaos. Maybe it is, I don't know. But the person was like crying, right? And because of things that were going on and miscommunications in the company.
Me, everybody.
It was Josh, sorry. But the thing that, in the conversation, like my first thing was to go, hey, share with me what's going on and why you feel this way. And then instead of trying to then combat each of those things, I literally said, well, share with me what you believe like success would look like. If you were in this role and you were like saying like, we should really do it this way, what would that way be? Trying to seek to understand their perspective, because if I can understand how they would want to lead it, then I can understand why what's being implemented down on them is not working for them, because it doesn't align to what their version of success is. And that's where you can get in alignment versus what in my early years, I probably would have done is gone, hey, well, this issue right here is not true because of X, Y, Z. This, it's this because of this. And trying to explain each situation. It's like, no. I need to first seek to understand why they even feel this way. And I got to get into their mind.
Getting that feedback and trying to figure out where that emotion is coming from is so critical. Like learning how to ask feedback-driven questions is a skill set all in itself. I watched a video by Layla Hermosi who talked about getting feedback from, your directs and how she approaches it. One of the things she does is similar to what you just said, which is, all right, well, if you were running this, how would you do it? Like if you're trying to get feedback, because sometimes if you go, what would you do different, or what would you like to see me do different, as a boss or whatever, you might not get that feedback. But if you get here's their perspective, here's how they're looking at the house, then you start to understand where they're coming from.
Yeah, there's this cool management saying about when people come into your office with a problem, they have a monkey. And they're trying to put that monkey on you. Do not let them put the monkey on you. Your role is to allow them to keep the monkey and basically go, well, how would you deal with this monkey? Like that's the key. So no monkeys. Don't take the monkeys, people.
Keep the monkeys. Yeah. There you go. Thank you so much for listening. Hopefully this episode will help you have some good conversations, difficult conversations, but good conversations, and produce some positive change in your life. If you like this episode and want to show your support, you can head on over to Apple Podcasts, drop us a 5-star review along with a comment. We'll read it here on the show. And the best way to support the show is simply share the podcast with someone that you know. Speaking of difficult conversations, I had a police officer come to the door and say he was looking for a man with one eye. This police officer was looking for a man with one eye. And so I had to tell him, I said, if you use both, you'll probably find him quicker. He was looking with one eye.
Nice.
Yeah. That's a pretty good one, man.
Yeah.
We had a poll, right? Did we do the poll yet?
We did. Actually, okay, hang on. I think I can look at what people said.
We had a broadcast. If you're not following Stay Paid Podcast on Instagram, number one, you should be. It is fantastic.
Yeah, that is our radical conversation with you.
Our broadcast channel. You guys should go ahead and check that out.
How
exciting.
Launched a broadcast
We've
channel.
Been updating it. But no one actually responded to the dad joke, so I see that as we keep doing them.
Well, we had 8 likes. Yeah.
There was 8 likes, so I think that's a positive.
I don't know, guys. That might be radical candor of wah, wah, wah.
All right, if you're going to get hold of me or Luke, you can email us at podcast@remindermedia.com. And, of course, check us out on Instagram. We are at Stay Paid Podcast. For this episode of Stay Paid, I'm Joshua Stike.
Guys, I'm Luke Acree. My action item for you is everything you want is on the other side of a difficult conversation. The difficult conversation you need to have right now. and you're avoiding it. Don't avoid it. Don't sugarcoat it. Apply the 6 principles that we talked about today. You will succeed, and you will be thankful that you did it. I look back on my career, and every time I had a hard conversation, I just tell myself, why didn't I have it sooner? Remember, the difference between top producers and mediocre producers in every industry is top producers take action. So take action on that today.